Welcome to this week's CTO Studio. Vidya joins us, Jerome joins us, Benji joins us. We talk about massive companies and maintaining culture, teeny tiny companies that maintaining culture. We talk about restaurants and food supply.
I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
Welcome to the CTO Studio. I'm your host, Etienne de Bruin. The CTO Studio is where we chat with CTOs building amazing products with incredible teams. Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Welcome to the CTO Studio. Benji, Jerome, Vidya. Last week was awesome with you.
That was amazing. It feels like so long ago.
That was a long time ago. It's nice to have you back.
Thanks.
Benji, you've been here before,
A
so
long time ago.
years ago.
Years ago.
And Jerome, you're joining us.
Years ago, maybe. I don't remember. Nice to be here.
Thank you for being with us. So Benji, CTO, co-founder of Galley Solutions. Jerome is the CTO of American Specialty Health Network.
American Specialty Health.
.com.
.com.
Vidya is CPO / co-founder, CPO type, but more importantly, co-founder of AdAstra, which is a accelerator for female-founded companies.
That's right.
Is saying female-founded acceptable?
That is acceptable. How
Is
else would you say it?
Woman
Female
founded?
founder. We like female found.
Is it better to say female CTO or woman CTO?
What sounds better? Woman CTO, female. I think it's a female CPO.
I think female CTO sounds...
CEO. Yeah. So it's women leaders.
Okay.
Yeah.
We like women CTOs as well.
I wish there were more.
So do I.
Where do we find them?
That's a great question. I just don't think there's that many women going through engineering. So you've got daughters. Make them go through engineering school.
I can't make them do nothing.
Yeah, I know. That's true.
One theory I heard was that women tend to ask themselves, can I do the job? And then whether they can meet the rec.
Yeah, there's a ton of research.
Whereas the man will say...
I can do it. So the research, this is really fascinating actually, because we've done tons of research about implicit bias at AdAstra. And when you take a look at a job description, women want to say yes to about 80 to 90% of the qualifications. You want to feel confident that you have it all. A man will go up with about 60% and go, yep, good enough. I'm going for it. And so this is on us. I mean, this is, we can't say that's not fair. So what we do is we teach women to say, you've got about 50, 60%, go for it. You don't know where that's going to go.
But what's fascinating for me with my daughters is I even at that young age, I'm seeing their drive for, I don't want to call it perfection, but whether it's singing a song or playing the piano or doing the cartwheel, there just seems to be an innate drive to do it perfectly. Whereas my son just doesn't give a shit. He's just like, well, I'm going to try catch the ball until I catch it. Where my daughter is like, I didn't catch it, so I'm not going to do it.
It's funny, that implicit bias starts so early. It's about 5 or 6 years old.
So how am I failing them as a dad?
You're not failing them. I think just the fact that you're looking at this and recognizing it is fantastic. I think what you need to do is to encourage them to take more risks and to applaud. And we talk about this a lot, right, with Agile and Lean, is have the learning, savor the learning, and talk about what they learned and talk about that growth mindset versus they did it, right? The completion, the outcome. It's what did you learn along the way? So ask those kinds of questions.
And it's not just you as a parent. Of course, it's the entire context in which they grow, right? I mean, talk about implicit bias, but I believe there is also a lot that happens on the other side when you see a resume that might be 60% right for one person, but, fits the profile. You might think, well, good enough, right? We'll take the chance. Whereas if it's a profile that's a little bit unusual, you might not. And the usual versus unusual completely depends on what you've seen in the past. So past is usually a pretty bad model for what we really want to achieve.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
In most things, right?
Yeah.
No, I love that. But I think that takes leaders to say, what kind of culture do I want to build? And am I really solving for diversity? Because if I've got 50 or 60% of the qualifications, let's work on it. Let's get you there, because that sort of diversity of thought is going to make our company stronger.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I think that's
But
true
is
at any
there-
level, right?
But is there a 60%, say yes to the 60% when you've got a 90% on the table as well?
True. I think it depends what type of qualities.
Because then it
you're
becomes a
looking
cultural,
for.
well,
Right.
cultural fit has become a, cultural fit I feel has become a label for being able to say whether you like or don't like someone.
Interesting. Really?
That's true. That's a good observation, right? That's part of the interview process. Cultural fit is kind of a catch-all for all the things that don't fit the boxes neatly.
Yeah.
So it could be where you stick all the biases and all the. It just doesn't feel right, She doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
Wouldn't fit.
I mean, with the hiring piece and talking about the requirements, like for me, building such an early stage company, and it might be different as you get further along, but my requirements are pretty low, because I cast a wide net and am interested. There's just so much that needs to get done at such an early stage, and also people are so much deeper than you get in an interview. I saw some clip, I can't remember who it was, but he essentially said, the important thing about culture is not so much hiring, but firing. Because when you hire somebody, you're making a guess. You really don't have enough information to go off of to make a concrete decision. So don't belabor it too much. I mean, obviously have some criteria, have some filters. But the key to maintaining and building a company culture is, are you firing the right people? And are you firing quick enough? And, the conversation of filling the requirements, I don't know that I've picked the right set of requirements. Maybe I pick a tech stack that I'm interested in, but just because you haven't used that tech stack doesn't mean that you're not going to be a good fit. So, I don't need, when I'm hiring for people, it's not even so much like, here's the job description, you fulfill 70% of it. It's like, who are you as a person? What's your mindset? Do you have a growth mindset? Do you have a craftsman mindset? How do you approach problem solving? And that's so much deeper than like an interview, that I'm more willing to take chances with people.
It's so interesting because we were just talking to a CEO, very successful, did a great exit, and he ended up trying to completely rebuild his culture. And now he has this question that I think is fantastic. He asks people, are you lucky? And I think that's so interesting, because it speaks to your mindset, and it speaks to how do you view the world and yourself? And this idea that if you feel lucky and you have this optimistic and you can speak about things in a way that is look at all these great things that have happened to me, versus no, I'm not. And things happen to me, and they happen, in a way that is really difficult. It really, those kinds of questions, I think, really understand and can dig into who you're hiring. And I think that speaks to, you talked about requirements, but if you forget about that and you say, I want the right type of person and I'm solving for a really varied group of people, these are the questions that are going to make a team.
I love that. I love the "Are you lucky?" question.
Interestingly, we are in the same mindset where, despite the fact that our company is 30 years old, so different stage, we tend to recruit engineers that are younger in their career, that maybe are less qualified. Our reason is, first, we are looking for character and all the traits that you were saying. So is the person hungry? Is she humble? Is she capable? What you learn on the job with years of experience, we can probably get there with some level of training. It's also, maybe more pragmatically, it's actually harder to find very senior people. It's harder to find somebody who's really, really talented with the exact skill set that you want. So we actually find it easier to hire younger people out of school for maybe a year or two, and actually train the hard skills we want. Which means, interestingly, that our, going back to the original topic, our engineer population has become more diverse because of that, right? We have more female, we have more folks from all different walks of life, just because I think as you said, our requirements are a little bit different, right?
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean,
So tell us about American Specialty Health.
Yeah, so again, 30-year-old company, started in the 80s out of a second bedroom in here in Pacific Beach, I believe. The original thought was, the solution when you have a medical problem is to go see a doctor, and they will give you a prescription, and they will, maybe prescribe surgery. There are gentler ways to take care of your health, that things like acupuncture, chiropractic, physical therapy. And interestingly, those aren't covered at all by any, regular health insurance. Why not? So I think American Specialty Health was the first company to provide that to the American population. So we still do that, right? We cover about 15 different specialties through the largest health plans like Blue Cross Blue Shield or Kaiser, Cigna, etc. And the thought has kind of grown over the years where now, what's another way to take care of your health, right? Maybe rather than even going to see a chiropractor, you can increase your level of exercise. And so we've developed programs to encourage employees or members of health plans to become more active, think about things in their lives, in their lifestyle that might impact them for the better. So quit smoking, sleep better, stress less, lose weight, develop solutions around that. And that's essentially what occupies most of our time now. So as a CTO, you might ask, what am I doing there? So a lot of those solutions we've developed through very deep clinical expertise. So we tend to do everything through evidence-based solutions, which also means a pretty high-touch, one-on-one clinician with a patient type solution. So my role is really to try to scale that quality of relationship and the driving to the same quality outcome without the one-on-one interaction. So we, instead of interacting with a coach or a physician, we're developing solutions where our members, our users can actually interact with apps, with devices, capture meaningful information, and have actually relevant and personalized recommendations to navigate their health. So that's the type of product that we build. And it's actually a very exciting segment of the healthcare industry.
Can you just clarify the relationship between, say, Blue Cross and the employee?
Yeah. So
and the chiropractor?
And maybe I'll start with us. So basically, our solutions augment the Blue Cross programs that they will then sell to an employer, right? So we can be the differentiator between one health plan and another one, because we're providing, for instance, free access to fitness centers and a reward if you actually do go to that fitness center and exercise.
So is there a way that I can, at 7 CTOs, provide Soul Cycle classes?
That's right.
Like literally, can we print out the documents now and then I can sign it?
So, as you mentioned at the beginning, I'm the CTO there. So I'll put you in touch with our sales crew.
Is Soul Cycle in your portfolio?
So
classes?
We started with what we call co-ed fitness clubs. So the 24-hour fitness, Planet Fitness, all of those. We are moving to incorporate now studios and boutique clubs like Soul Cycle or Bar or Orange Theory and those. Currently planned for 2020. So if you're thinking about your benefit roadmap, yes.
I would love that so much. Aren't you a Soul Cycler?
I prefer bar.
Is Bar not yoga?
How's ballet?
Bar actually started with ballet. Yeah, you're right.
What is bar?
It's a bar, and you hold on to it, and you contort
Oh.
yourself around it.
So he's kidding. He's messing with me.
I think he might be
Okay,
messing with you. Yeah.
Are you a soul cycler?
Yeah, I soul cycled for my birthday a couple months ago, a couple weeks ago.
Once.
Or
No, I've gone to 8 classes.
Okay.
8?
Good for you.
My favorite part of Soul Cycle is when I imagine myself cycling through the universe, and my family is behind me, and I'm forging a way for them through the stars.
that's
Great.
quite compelling.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I got a Peloton, and they're amazing.
Mm.
I'm seriously considering
People
because
love those.
Soul Cycle's $25 a class.
Yeah, well, you don't have to go to 4 classes.
Do you
and you're
feel?
paid for it.
Do you feel it? Do you feel like you're
I
the
think
community
the
thing?
customer experience is incredible.
Wow.
I actually prefer that to going to a class with other people, because that person is talking to me. Is like right there.
Does it feel that way?
Totally. It's fun.
And then I like also that they have the comparative metrics, right?
They've got you've got the comparisons. You can put your friends up there. You can change your music. You can cycle to the universe. You can cycle through my hometown. There is a place you can cycle through my hometown.
Oh, so you can cycle through your hometown.
There's all these different places you can cycle, as well as classes.
It's no brainer.
Yeah.
I'm definitely doing that.
It's amazing.
Once I get
highly
my credit
recommend.
score up, I'm gonna see if I can sign up for it.
So you were, Etienne, can I ask you a question? You were talking about bringing these type of program, Soul Cycle and cycling to the stars to 7 CTO members. Why are you thinking about that?
I
Look at
just think that
that.
it's such
That's a big
a
question.
so first of all, if we can have some experiences together, it builds the relational bond. And I think if you're suffering like that and then you experience that high together, I just think that it provides just this, it sort of invests in the foundations of our relationships in a way that just sets us up. Because at 7 CTOs with our forums, we're trying to do that by spending 4 hours a month together, and being open and vulnerable with each other. Well, that's 4 hours of talky, with some accountability every month. But if you can add some experiences to it, where we can say, hey, in addition to doing lunches together or coffee dates, why don't we all go run on the beach in slow motion, hand in hand?
Interesting enough, that's exactly what I was thinking after our attempts to organize lunches and try to meet outside of the forum here. I think this is a really good idea, and not just about increasing maybe the fitness level of some of our members, but getting some to do some hard stuff together.
Absolutely.
Might
So are you building this? So, I mean, when you said what you did,
Right.
it sounded like ClassPass or something like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
So is it an integrated type of ClassPass experience?
It is. Some of our products are very comparable to, or competing with ClassPass, except we don't sell them directly to the public. So we have, a consumer product that we launched last year. It's called Active and Fit Direct, that actually provides you access to. I think we're up above 10,000 clubs nationwide for, again, $25 a month. So you can go to any club anytime. You don't have any contract or other long-term obligation. So similar to that, right? As we're moving up the tiers, like Soul Cycle or Bar, might have more restrictions, but the interest is get people access to a place where they can exercise at a low cost, where money is actually not a barrier for increasing your level of fitness.
I just think that being stuck in a dark room with 30 other strangers, shoulder to shoulder, cycling as if your life depends on it, for 45 minutes with thumping music, is game changer. I've never felt so in love with strangers before than after a Soul Cycle class.
The class that I did that was weird like that was glow boxing.
Glow
Boxing. So it's completely dark, and you've got the weights, and you've got an instructor, and it's completely pitch black, and then the lights, like the fluorescent lights, go on, or the neon lights, and you're glow boxing.
That and
I can see you doing that.
and how did you feel?
kind of horrible. Like, it was dark and it's smelly and it's
And you're like,
neon lights.
What am I
It's just
doing?
wrong.
This is so
Yeah.
first world. I'll end this, I promise. But yesterday, while I was pushing hard, I noticed that my leg was going up and down at the exact same oscillation as the person next to me, and I just felt so at one with this total stranger.
There was a connection there.
And she went up and down, and I was like, I want to stay with her in this moment, and the part of me was like, I hope she can see me and my legs,
She feels the same way.
and that we're both doing it at the same. I don't know.
This is going to a really strange
I think
place.
we
Yeah.
can end the
I-
topic
yeah,
there.
Well, I just wanted to
Pull
put
up
a nice
Etienne.
little good.
Touchy-feely end to it.
I mean, it's a massive company, right? I mean, a lot of people.
So we are about 1,500 employees, and what's interesting is we're continuing to grow organically at 15 to 20% clip a year. So we've been growing the technology team a lot, and together with that, the maturity of our practice. So it's an interesting, different from probably what you're living, Benji, but with I think a lot of similarities in the challenges that we're probably facing. How do you, as you grow from 1 engineer to 5 engineer, what type of culture do you want to create? And as you grow from 100 to 150 engineers, what type of culture do you want to maintain, if there was one? Changing culture is very hard, but creating it and growing it and maintaining it, that's really interesting, right? So.
And are there certain things that you believe in that sort of has helped you, sort of as a north star for maintaining the culture that you feel is important for the company and especially for your tech, for your team?
Yeah. So a lot of the things that we're trying to create is really a connection to the purpose. The purpose is building great product. The purpose is also making people healthier, our users. And we want to be genuine about it, and we want everybody who contributes to that, not just the product managers or the product owners, to actually feel that they are part of something that has a meaningful purpose, right? So having fun doing it is great, but building something that is going to change somebody's life, I think, is what makes the difference in the work that you do. I think in the environment we live in today, as an engineer, you can probably get a job anywhere pretty fast, right? It's not challenging. I think the unemployment rate is probably negative. So why come work for a little known company as American Specialty Health? Well, I think the purpose matters, and that's one of the ways that I think we can attract some of the best talent.
With companies like that, I often wonder about do employees have to be fit? And by that I mean a fitness mindset, or and I'm helping a company now that is also sort of a Uber fitness style content company, and everyone there is good, has a fitness, health, holistic mindset, which makes me think that anybody who might be overweight or not in good shape. Is there like a natural selection thing happening there?
Yeah, we're trying to be a little more gentle about that. I've worked and collaborated with companies where it was indeed very biased towards super fit people and kind of trying to up one another. What triathlon did you run this weekend? And I think that creates kind of a nasty atmosphere more than anything else, right? So when we think about the culture of fitness, it means more, it's okay to take an hour at lunch to go run or play soccer, right? And if you want to organize a team to have beach volley, we'll provide you the means to do that, and we'll provide you, towels and if you want to buy a net, or so it is more enabling people to do what they want in terms of fitness, in terms of healthy activities. That also creates some of the bonding that you are talking about that can happen. It's a little more organic than, everybody trying to compete against each other for, seeing who's the most, the fittest. We also encourage other healthy habits, like, we've gotten rid of sodas and, unhealthy snacks, replaced it with fruits and, carbonated water. I mean, I don't know, the wine, it's healthy, right?
It is. Lots of antioxidants.
Maybe we should consider it. So yeah, that's really the type of culture we're trying to create.
I love it. And so let's switch over to Benji. Why don't you remind us what you guys are building and sort of your team makeup?
Yeah. So we are building software to help food organizations of varying sizes, from restaurants all the way up to, commercial airline kitchens, run their food operations more efficiently. So in the industry, it's called back of house operations, where they every day have to make food. They have to take raw ingredients, use recipes to convert them into finished product. And the sort of status quo right now is spreadsheets in order to manage all of that. And that's obviously very brittle and very, low tech, not very supportive. And there are a lot of processes that happen on a daily basis that can be automated or semi-automated. So the goal of Galley is to provide a really user-friendly, easy-to-use, web-based solution where companies can store their recipes and enter in their projected production numbers, how much of each recipe do they want to make. And we support them. We help them with purchasing. We help them create purchase orders with 1 click or 2 clicks. We have a theoretical inventory so that the system can keep track of how many pounds of tomatoes you have in-house, so that when you go to buy tomatoes, it takes into account how much you already have. So the goal is to really, save time, save human capital time, save food waste, hopefully avoid some of the huge spoilage and food loss that happens in the industry, and help to contribute to this sort of new age of food that's coming with the advent of these new delivery networks of on-demand, at-home service. It's completely changed the dynamics of a food operation. Even your local restaurant is now on Uber Eats. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean for their food operation? Mm-hmm. They now have to, they have unlimited demand now. Mm-hmm. They no longer are limited by the number of seats in their store or the people around their neighborhood. They can service a much broader customer segment. So a lot of these food organizations are struggling to get their operations in line so that they can scale and capture this demand and benefit from these new technologies.
And they can have about 10 cell phones next to their cash register.
Yeah, exactly. That's
all the orders.
That's a whole other
that's
problem.
Cool. It sounds like such a big need,
Yeah.
I love you're saving all this like food wastage, and that's fantastic. Who are your customers?
So we have a broad set of customers in our small initial set of customers. I mean, we've been operating for about 1.5 years now. We have about 25 to 30 customers from all different sizes and kinds. One of our largest customers is a delivery-only restaurant in Paris. They've actually just scaled to Madrid and London as well. So they are, delivery-only virtual ghost restaurant that only exists on delivery platforms, and they have 3 different concepts, all serviced from one commissary location. Mm-hmm. So there's that idea of like the new age food that is highly tech dependent. So they're very open to these tech solutions that help them scale.
That's
and then
really interesting.
And then we also have, catering companies and organizations that have been running for decades who are recognizing that technology has infiltrated every other enterprise except for food. And they're still running their operations off of pencil and paper or spreadsheets. And, there just hasn't been a good enough solution to adopt.
So is your app actually in the kitchens?
Yep. Yeah. So the main users of the app are the executive chef, the purchasing manager, the inventory manager, even line cooks. Eventually, we'll have kiosks around the kitchen at certain prep tables, and it'll tell you what's the next thing that you're supposed to be working on. So just that task delegation and communication.
So then it sounds like, because what I thought you said in the beginning was really about sort of the management and the inventory and the purchasing, but it also sounds like you're doing this on the line.
Oh, yeah.
So actually when orders are coming in, you're saying, this is what you do, here's a recipe, like the whole works.
Yeah, so there's definitely I think what you're getting at is like in a restaurant, if you look behind the scenes, there's these screens up and it says this is what the order is that's coming in. That's more real time, like kitchen management systems. We're not quite focusing on that just yet. We're more on less real time applications where it's more procedural.
Okay.
It's almost more like a manufacturing line,
Okay.
as opposed to being so influenced from customer orders coming in.
So this will be like a once a day or twice a day. I'm going in and I'm making sure that I'm ready for what's coming next.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
And the application came from my previous experience at Sprig, which was a startup in San Francisco. It was at one point the largest food provider in San Francisco. We were doing about 5,000 meals a day, and it was a delivery-only food organization. So every day we had a certain menu. We had a certain number of meals that we wanted to make available, and the goal was how can we most efficiently make those meals. So it's a lot of batching and pre-processing to optimize. It's sort of an optimization problem from an engineering perspective. How can you most efficiently make these different products?
You work with the supply side as well?
So eventually, yes. When we have this product really built out and we're giving a lot of value to these food organizations, we're going to have an incredible amount of very applicable data.
Yeah.
And that data is going to be valuable, and suppliers are going to be interested. And so it's probably a natural evolution to also include, a supply chain piece of this. But that's sort of phase 2, phase 3 sort of thing.
You're based in San Diego?
Yeah.
All of your engineers in San Diego, or
Yep.
your distributed team?
Yeah, we're all local. We're still small, so to Etienne's question of what's the engineering team makeup, I actually hired a couple junior engineers from a local code academy.
Oh.
So one from Origin Code Academy, which is since shut down, and 2 actually from Learn, which is another local code academy. So, wanting to have those junior developers that are hungry, but really smart, really eager, and then selfishly wanting to be able to mold them a little bit myself and turn them into...
That's an amazing luxury, by the way. The junior engineer molding and shaping them.
Yeah.
Because especially people from code schools, I find are so hungry and so eager and so aware of how little they know, that there's just this amazing ability and desire to work hard. The ethics, the work ethic.
Yeah. It takes a lot to decide at some later point in your life, I'm going to pivot. It's like a startup. You make a decision of like, I see a better path. I'm going to risk a lot to take on a lot of personal responsibility to make a change in my life. And I think the people who make it out on the other end are really, it speaks to the character, back to the hiring thing. What's the culture that you want to build? I was going to comment, for me, when I think about culture, when I think about the companies that I have worked at before, I really think that the culture of a company is just the people at the company. And that's why it's so important who you hire, who you fire, right? Again, one of the most important things of building culture is firing people. And it's not to say that I love firing people, but it's that when you have, if you have the person who's constantly coming in being like, oh, what was your triathlon time? And if that's not the culture that you want, by them doing that, that is your culture. That is them representing, being a part of your company. And, it's not to say fire somebody over that, but, it's to me, it's the people, and it's so much of their character and their sort of being that really defines that.
Yeah, in our portfolio, we work with a bunch of companies, and we spend a good chunk of time on values. And I think that when you talk about culture, it derives from what values do you hold like important. And a lot of the time, you're so busy to you just need people, you just need bodies, especially if you're growing. And it's just so easy to feel desperate to try and get that next person on just to do the work. But it just causes you, it's like then, you're firing a bunch of people. but we actually take people through hours of values exercises to really understand what's important, because it comes from your leadership team. And then you live it, and then you can see people who actually don't. So yeah, I mean, you talk culture, and I think I just go one layer down to say it's really is a value-driven exercise about what you want this company and how you want it to show up.
I love it when I see companies, especially early stage companies, thinking deliberately about the values they want to maintain and create. I think it is, as you said, easy to succumb to, I just need to get that project out the door, and I just need, a couple more engineers, whomever. But I think what you're building over time, a culture is essentially behavior over time, right? It's nothing else. You don't want to let it happen by chance. So, especially as a founder or as CTO or as an executive in a company, you want to be very deliberate about hiring the right people, firing the wrong people, but also being clear about what is it that makes it right or wrong, right?
It makes me to kind of come back to the junior engineer thing and establishing that culture. One of the big giants in my life's name is Sugata Mitra, who is an Indian guy who ran these hole-in-the-wall experiments in New Delhi. And he basically had kids, he put a computer in a hole in the wall, and then he would observe kids' behavior who'd never been exposed to that. And then he would observe how would they interact with this machine when they haven't ever been trained, they haven't been educated, they're in the slums. And you can guess what happened. I mean, the kids taught themselves how to use these machines. And he then went to create this foundation and this sort of learning academy. And one of the things he said was, it's not so speaking about our children, he's in education, he said, it's not our job to teach our kids, about things. It's our job to ask them interesting questions. And it struck me so much, and especially when I work with junior engineers, it's my challenge isn't how can I teach them this thing, but how can I ask them interesting enough questions that they will then pursue that. And I think that kind of drags them into your culture, as opposed to that sort of, well, this is how I want you to do things, this is how I want the culture expressed. It's more, my challenge now is how do I keep you interested by asking you those questions?
I think it's similar to how you want to build products as well, right? Focusing on the problem, not necessarily the solution. But we get very enamored by thinking about solutions, and often we forget what problem we're trying to solve. So,
I love it when CTOs say that. Makes me happy.
I heard you talk,
No.
so that was a softball.
No, I think that is, just near and dear. It's like finding and discussing the right problem, right? And I think it speaks to the question is ask your customers. Like, you've got to observe, you've got to watch, you've got to learn. And then there's lots and lots of ideas that you can experiment on and you can figure out different solutions. But that sort of parallel path just isn't a very good one anymore. And so much of the time we start straight into solutions, and it's not just engineers. Everybody does it. Product people are just as guilty. Because we like solving problems, right? If I gave you a problem right now or a puzzle, your instinct isn't to ask them questions. You're going to go straight and go, I know how to do that.
My brain.
Yeah. Totally.
I believe it's how our education system works. So I can only comment on what I've seen, in probably most of the Western countries, but that's basically what we teach our kids at school from the earlier stage, thinking about solutions, algorithms, not necessarily the underlying problems, right? How do we teach math? We teach that, in order to multiply one number by another, you need to remember your table, etc. But what does it mean underneath that, and why would you do that? I think we don't typically.
So I wanna contrast the challenges maybe that the two of you have, Jerome and Benji. Jerome, CTO of a large company. Benji, starting from scratch. Team of 100 plus. How large is your team?
We're about 150 engineers.
Okay, and team of 5 plus, right? Jerome, are you still beholden to finding out what customers want, or do you have a system in place that shields your team from that? Whereas with Benji, you probably couldn't survive if you aren't asking that question every day, like what does the customer want? So how is that problem similar, or how is it completely different for the two worlds that you guys live in?
That's actually really interesting, because I believe that organizations, as they grow, tend to shield indeed their development teams and their engineering groups from the customer and the problems that they have. So I see in most occasions my role as actually being unshielding, right? So exposing the folks who build the product, teams who bring those solutions to the market to the users that actually are on the receiving end. So either internal users, if we are building our own tools, right? Or if I were building tools for restaurant, actually go there and see how the line is working. We go to gyms and talk to folks who are exercising there, to the gals who are behind the counter, and we try to understand who they are and build the right tools for them. I think that this is critical. I believe, again, it's also part of the culture. And again, my role is removing those shields in a lot of, in most cases.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've sort of, I lived, this product is sort of a V2 for me. I built it internally for a company first, and that was day in, day out in the kitchen with a hairnet on, watching the chefs do their work. And the interesting thing, talking about hearing the problem, a big part of my job then and now is hear the problem, but not necessarily respond immediately to that problem, because I have a lot of people that say, hey, I need this field on this page, or I need this column on this sheet. And you need to have the discipline to say, well, why? Mm-hmm. What are you trying to do? And it's sort of, the 5 whys. How can you understand the root cause? And what I found is the beauty of that is you might have 10 different people telling you a different problem. But if you root cause, a lot of them are sort of similar. And then you can, I'm big on, high impact bullets that are like, here's one feature that solves 5 of the different problems that I've just heard. And so being an early stage company trying to run lean, that's been really critical for us. One of the things I wanted to talk about is road mapping. And one of the challenges that I'm having is not only my team, in terms of the sales team and customers, are asking, okay, well, what features are you going to be building? I'm so hesitant to commit because I'm constantly in real time gathering data and trying to understand where's the product at, where the customer's at, and what is the next thing that needs to get built. And I have a vision in my head of long term, these are the high level features that we're going to have. But in terms of the week by week, sprint by sprint sort of planning, I'll have an idea of what we'll build, and then it'll completely change. Mm-hmm. And so, I guess my question to you, Vidya, is like, how do you, is there a answer? This is how you should roadmap, or is it contextual? And is it more? Am I taking too much liberty in being the product owner and the CTO, or do you?
No, the fact that you're just listening about problem statements and asking the whys. I'm like, you're the ideal person to sort of sit and straddle both of those. The what you ask is, I think it's really common, whether you're a really big company and you've got B2B customers and they're asking you, and you just have to say something and it's taken that's going to be delivered. What I found and what I've used as the best way to do this is to have, instead of dates, is this idea of now, like now, later, and future. And so what you're showing is a pipeline of a list of things that you're working on right now and you will deliver, and they have date commitments. And then things that are in your pipeline next, so now next, and that can change. And so the fact that it's next and it doesn't have a date or a sprint against it allows you to have the conversation about how important it is, like where it falls, you can talk about the research and what you've learned. And then later is these big ideas that are, in a vision, and you're really still working through it, and you can come back to them. And if you do that, it doesn't take very long, 2 or 3 times. People get used to things coming on and off because you haven't put them in a date roadmap. And so I would say just try and take all your dates off and just go to that 3 simple column of now, next, later. And give that a shot. And that's the most effective way I found to have that communication.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, you've worked in larger companies, so you actually see probably the problem on the other side, which is the abundance of requests and ideas and problems that need to be solved, and the same need to prioritize what is the next thing that you should be working on. And we've actually done almost exactly what you're saying, where we have what we're calling a release, which is, we're releasing actually every day, but we're freezing our roadmap for the next 3 months. So that kind of stabilizes thoughts a little bit and focuses the team. So next 3 month worth of work, that's committed, and we can talk to it. We can actually sell the actual feature, and with a, more or less exact timeline. 3 months to a year, that's our roadmap. Things might change, sequences of delivery, the detail of the feature, that's going to change. And a year and beyond, we want to be able to talk to that, but it's more the domain of the vision. So there is really very little commitment there. We invite feedback and other thoughts, but we shouldn't promise something that's a year and a half out with a screenshot of what it will look like. We know that we've done that, and it doesn't work, right?
And that's interesting, because we are training our people that it's about dates when we use dates, and it's so tempting to always say, well, it's 3 weeks out or it's 6 weeks out, and to just say, well, it's the now, and it's ready when it's ready.
And I think for now, it could be a sprint, or it could be your 3 months. When you're a more established company, you have to have more rigor because you've got a lot more customers that you're rolling out to. So that date is completely arbitrary, and you may have a 4th category in there. But using that flexibility and using the terms that fit, and you might have something that's like fun with the food industry, but the ability, kind of like you can imagine on a gallery and a pipeline of food going out, I would just have fun with it and just say it's like, ready to eat, and then, et cetera.
It's in the freezer.
It's in the freezer. It's like,
marinating,
marinating, it's a recipe, but having sort of this concept where you can actually just show them that there's different stages, and then you are responsible for telling them what comes off and on. So it's not a shock. I'm like, I had 5 things that are marinating. Where the heck do they go, right? You're like, you blow the line. This is what replaced it, and this is why. That conversation, I think, is a really good one, and most customers get it because you're speaking to what's most important for them.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I want to hear how it goes.
Yeah. Appreciate the feedback.
You should have my 6-hour marinated tri-tip.
Later.
When we're on the bike, thinking about the stars. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, just briefly as we end, how do you guys feel about eating food that someone puts on a plate and then gives to you, and then you just eat it?
You mean like in a restaurant?
Yes. Don't you sometimes think to yourself, I'm so lulled into just putting something in my mouth, in my body. I don't know where it comes from. I'm just trusting that the hygiene in the kitchen is okay. I mean, is it just crazy me talking? But like, for instance, I just subscribed to Daily Harvest, so I get these little frozen food things. I'm on a trial period, and I'm amazed at how I go to the freezer, I take it out, I see the stuff in this thing. God knows where Then I put it in the blender, I add some almond milk, I fire it up, I put it in the thing, and then I consume it. I'm like, what the fuck did I just do?
Yeah. Hey, if it's got no chemicals in it, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. I'm just amazed at how we trust the food supply. It's just shocking.
I don't know, Benji, should we?
I'm like
Where do all
moving
that
over
come
here.
from?
That's phase 2 for us. We haven't gone there yet.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
appreciate it. Thanks
That's
for having
fun.
us.
Fun.
Cheers. Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Hi, thank you for listening to the CTO Studio. If you don't mind, take a quick second and please rate and review the show. It helps us a lot. Go to thectostudio.com for more information on what we're doing at 7 CTOs. We also have a video or two for you that could be a helpful resource for you as you're managing your company. So thank you for listening.